Shocking new video captured at a Border Patrol checkpoint outside Uvalde, Texas, appears to show a suspected human trafficker losing control of his vehicle while trying to evade DPS officials. Joining me now to discuss the collapse at our southern border is former U.S. Border Patrol Chief Ron Vitiello. Ron, thanks for joining us. Another image of chaos from the border. What goes through your mind when you see this?
Well, it shows you a couple of things, the risks that law enforcement, first responders, including the Border Patrol, take each and every day to try to protect us, right? This is also an example of these smugglers' disregard for everyone's lives involved, right? The motoring public, the people who are being smuggled in that vehicle, and certainly the law enforcement that were trying to make that apprehension. The border has always been sort of a dangerous place, like bad things happen there. But then when you have the kind of chaos we're seeing now, it gets worse. And these smugglers are making so much money under this administration because the border is completely out of control. You have thousands and thousands of people. They said the weekly average now is over 7,000, almost 8,000 people every 24 hours. It's just crazy numbers. The system's not equipped for this. There's not enough agents. There's not enough workstations. There's not enough floor space. They're really in a bad way down there.
And I think perhaps the strangest news on this subject is there's a new book out. The Hill has excerpts of a book by Chris Whipple suggesting that President Biden was angry because he kept demanding solutions from his staff and didn't seem to have a way to find solutions, and this was getting him angry. I'm not sure what to make of this because it seems like one of the bizarre aspects of this presidency is that there's been a general posture that there's no problem at the border. They don't need a solution because everything is going as planned. I want to play some clips from Biden officials talking about the border and then ask you to respond.
We have a secure border.
The border is secure.
We have taken unprecedented action over the past year and a half to secure our border.
The border remains closed. It is not open. We are turning away the majority of adults.
We have a process in place to manage migrants at the border.
So the president and everybody who works for him has been saying, we got this. There's not a crisis. We have a process. And yet he's backstage, I guess, screaming for a solution. Not that there haven't been plenty of people suggesting solutions. What do you make of this bizarre story?
Actually, it's very concerning, right? Because if he actually believes there's a problem down there, which we all can see with our own eyes, despite the clips that you just said, all of that leadership ignoring how bad it is down there. But then if you have the president expressing frustration about what has happened or how to fix it or send somebody down there, make this go away, in some version of that, he's upset, but yet nothing gets done. That should concern all of us, right? He's the commander-in-chief. If he wants to fix this problem, it's not that hard to do. He inherited 40-year lows in activity on our southwest border. When he took over, that border was more secure than it had been in decades. And within one day of being the president, he ripped down all of the tools that were being used by the front line to help secure the border. That ended the last surge in 2020, and he inherited 40-year lows. And now we're seeing the worst surge on the southwest border that we've ever seen. They're on pace to do well over what they did last year, which was a record 2.3 million. The year before was 1.7. We've never seen that kind of activity across the border illegally in years. And we're going to do more this year. And if they really want to fix this, all they got to do is go back to what they inherited, but they refuse to do it. And so if he's not in charge, who is?
Yeah, that's what this question just keeps coming up here, but it's so strange where a lot of people have had theories on why does he not think it a problem or why does he think it's good politics to keep this chaos going. Now, does this make you more optimistic or less optimistic? I mean, is it a staff issue? Are they not telling him that there are many people in Congress and elsewhere in the country saying, here's a proposal, here's a way to secure the border, here's a way to end the chaos? Do you think he's not getting informed by his staff? Is that what this story tells us?
Well, that idea is very scary, right? If he's not being told the truth as the president, And then if he doesn't have the faculties to find out on his own what's going on at the border, he put the vice president in charge of something, root causes or something like that. I mean, she should fire herself. The root
root causes. I guess the idea is you make you fix the rest of the world so that nobody would feel the need to come to the United States or the desire. That's a long-term project, to say the least, and possibly will never happen. I mean, how likely is it that other countries in the world will all become more awesome than the United States? Pretty unlikely, right?
Agreed. Plus, there's no evidence of her working on it, right? If they really thought there was a problem down there, why isn't she engaging with countries like Venezuela, with Cuba? We just did a deal with Exxon, let them produce oil in Venezuela. Did we get a repatriation agreement with it? That's what we should have done. Right now at the border, record activity, and 2/3 of everybody that the Border Patrol is encountering are being released in the United States. That's a recipe for more of the same, and that's where we're going to go.
Okay, thanks, Ron. We'll have to leave it there.